Chapter 70-43. What will it take for you to let her go? Di Xiaofeng stared coldly at the man opposite him. The man narrowed his eyes and covered the right side of his face with one hand. There was a hideous wound there. You left such a mark on my face, so I naturally have to repay you. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were cold. As long as you let her go, I don't care how many wounds you leave on my face. The man chuckled maliciously. You think that's enough? Dream on. I want to see you in pain and consign you to eternal damnation. Break his legs first, then I'll see how he's going to be so smug. The man then looked at Di Xiaofeng. If you dare to resist, this woman will immediately die in front of you. Di Xiaofeng stood rooted to the ground and looked at Bailey Yunyan, who was already in tears. A gorgeous smile bloomed on his lips. Close your eyes, it's no big deal. No, don't. Bailey Yunyan shook her head frantically. She might as well kill Bailey Yunyan directly if she had to watch Di Xiaofeng suffer such humiliation. Wait. At this moment, a woman stood out. The woman's figure was enchanting and her bright red dress outlined her enchanting figure. Her bright face exuded a seductive aura. Ning Yaoyao, what are you doing? The man looked at Ning Yaoyao, who suddenly walked over and frowned. Ning Yaoyao didn't answer. Instead, she walked to Di Xiaofeng's side and sized him up clearly. The corners of her lips continued to rise. Her hand brushed across Di Xiaofeng's face. The latter turned his head away in disgust, his brows filled with disgust. Ning Yaoyao chuckled and bit her red lips before turning to look at the man behind her. I've taken a liking to this man. Ning Yang was stunned and looked at Ning Yaoyao in astonishment. This guy stole our things. What do you mean? That's exactly what I meant. Ning Yaoyao laughed. It's rare to find such a handsome man. Wouldn't it be a pity if he was crippled like this? As for this thing, didn't we already get it back? It's not a big deal. Look at my face. It's all because of this guy. Ning Yang's face was filled with unwillingness. However, Ning Yaoyao's cultivation was higher than his, and her status in the clan was also higher than his. His attitude could not be too tough. It's just a wound, it will heal sooner or later. Ning Yaoyao said indifferently, didn't you already do whatever you want with that woman? This man. Give him to me. This sudden turn of events caused everyone present to be a little startled. Bailey Yunyan was startled, and then she nodded frantically at Di Xiaofeng. Right now, she didn't care about anything as long as Xiaofeng could live. Even if she had to feign civility for a moment with Xiaofeng's strength, she believed that leaving this place wouldn't be a problem. Yaoyao needs a man for her daily cultivation, and a handsome man like this is something that can only be found by chance. It's no wonder that she would step forward at this time. If you ask me, I'd rather die than follow Yaoyao. In any case, the final outcome can't be changed. That's not necessarily the case. Dying under a peony is also a romantic thing. At least it's a quick death, isn't it? A string of male chuckles sounded, with a hint of evil intentions. Chapter 70-44. It was rare to see such a handsome man on a normal day. Previously, she only knew that her family was chasing such a person, but she didn't pay much attention. Because this wasn't the first time such a thing had happened in her family. Every once in a while, there would always be some blind guy appearing. However, the man in front of her was better looking than any man she had seen before, which really moved her heart. How about it? Are you willing to go with me? Ning Yaoyao looked at Di Xiaofeng with a smile. Her every frown and smile was charming. However, Di Xiaofeng didn't even look at her, not interested. Hearing this, Ning Yaoyao's expression changed slightly and her eyes narrowed. This woman is already dead for sure. If you don't agree, you will also die here today. So what? Di Xiaofeng's lips curved into a mocking smile. He came here today with no intention of leaving alive. He couldn't abandon Yunyan. When they got married, he had promised. His rhetorical question made Ning Yaoyao fall silent. Ning Yaoyao, this guy doesn't even appreciate your kindness. Why waste time on him? Ning Yang was looking forward to killing Di Xiaofeng with his own hands. Now that he saw him refuse, he was simply too happy. Do it. Ning Yang stood beside Bailey Yunyan with a dagger in his hand, the dagger pressed against her throat. Bang. Kacha. The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. Di Xiaofeng knelt on the ground. The intense pain didn't make him frown. His eyes fell on Bailey Yunyan from beginning to end. Xiaofeng. Bailey Yunyan screamed. The pain in her heart was indescribable. Such a scene was enough to break one's heart. Di Xiaofeng's lips curved slightly. His pale face bloomed with a dazzling smile like the sun. Don't be afraid, I'm here. Outside the Ning clan. Xiren, what should we do? Shangguan Yingying anxiously looked at the man beside her. She was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. This Pingfeng city is really too far from Xian City. We can't find help in a short time. Xiaofeng appearing there now is simply courting death, but we can't beat them even if we go in. Xiren's expression was solemn. He was also so anxious that his forehead was covered in sweat. However, in the current situation, they had no other choice but to rely on themselves. If only Hong Zhuang was here. Even if she couldn't beat us, she could still poison us. The man sighed. Over the past few days, in order to avoid the pursuit of these fellows in the Screen Mountain range, they had used up all the poison in their bodies. If they went in to fight, they would only be throwing the two of them into danger. No one in Level Peak City is willing to offend the Ning clan. Besides, we don't have many resources on us. There's no way the other party would believe us. Their expressions were extremely grave, but they couldn't think of any other way. If this continues, they will lose their lives here. Xiren was vexed. If I knew the situation here would be like this, I would have called Yunju and the others over. After a while, Xiren seemed to have made an important decision. He looked seriously at Shangguan Yingying. Yingying, I can't just watch Xiaofeng and the others lose their lives. In a while I will go in. No matter what, I have to try my best. You go and pass this news back. When Beichen and the others come back, they will definitely avenge us. Chapter 70-45. During this period of time, they had already seen the strength of the Ning family, so they knew the gap between them and the Ning family. Not to mention the fact that the Ning family had a large number of people. The fact that the Ning family had an expert in the elementary celestial stage meant that they were doomed. Don't worry. Maybe the situation is not that bad. I still have some bombs that Hong Zhuang made. Maybe they can be of some use. When Xiren rummaged through his storage ring and suddenly discovered that there was a brocade pouch here. This brocade pouch. It seems that this was given to you by Beichen? Shangguan Yingying said in surprise. Beichen said that if you need help, you can open it and have a look. Maybe it will be helpful. Xiren suddenly remembered that when Beichen gave him the brocade pouch, he thought it was funny and did not take it seriously. As he opened the brocade pouch, he found a talisman in it. This is a transmission talisman? Xiren looked at the talisman in his hand carefully and identified the type of talisman. A transmission talisman? Shangguan Yingying's eyes lit up. She quickly found a similar brocade pouch in her cosmos bag and said, I have one here too. The two of them were stunned. If they had known about this thing, they would not have been in such a situation. Xiren held his forehead. Why didn't he notice it? Previously, when Beichen had given him the item, he had thought that Beichen's action was superfluous and did not take it to heart at all. In the past few years, there were a lot of things in his storage ring, so he had forgotten about it. If he had not rummaged through all the things in his storage ring, he would not have noticed it at all. But it seems that there are only 2 transmission talismans. Shangguan Yingying thought for a while and said, when Beichen gave it to us, it was still early. Xiaofeng and the others had not come to the realm of chaos yet. I think it has been too long. Maybe even Beichen has forgotten about it. Yingying, give me your teleportation talisman. I'll try to save them. When Xiren looked at the teleportation talisman in his hand. With these 2 teleportation talismans, at least 2 of them would be able to leave safely. Shangguan Yingying nodded slightly and said, this teleportation talisman was made by Beichen. It doesn't seem to be very far, but it can help you escape temporarily. You have to be careful. When Xiren nodded heavily. It was better for one person to die than both of them. At least it gave them a chance to survive. If only Beichen was here, I wouldn't have to worry so much. In the next moment, Xiren forcefully pulled Shangguan Yingying into his arms, greedy for that familiar warmth. Raising his head again, he kissed Shangguan Yingying's forehead and said seriously, Yingying, I'm leaving. Shangguan Yingying's eyes were filled with tears. She nodded slightly and said, okay. Almost everyone in the Ning clan was watching the show, so no one noticed when Xiren who had climbed over the wall. When he saw the situation clearly, he was furious and the veins on his forehead bulged. These bastards. Bang. Just as Ning Yang was about to destroy Di Xiaofeng's proud face with the dagger, a shocking explosion suddenly sounded. Then they were shocked to find that their door was suddenly blown away. Blown away. Chapter 70-46. Damn it. Which bastard did this? Ning Yang's face was filled with rage. Everyone present was enraged. Someone actually dared to blow up the main gate of their Ning clan. This was simply a slap in the face. When Di Xiaofeng saw the sudden commotion, his expression couldn't help but change slightly. He almost immediately guessed who did this. Xiren? Di Xiaofeng muttered. Di Xiaofeng murmured. Was what he said not clear enough? This guy, Xiren, didn't care about the roaring Ningyang at all. He continued to throw bombs in all directions. Since he couldn't beat these guys, he might as well anger them to death and make them angry. Who knows, he might make a mistake. Bang bang bang. The sound of explosions continued to ring out in the Ning clan's territory. The huge commotion instantly attracted many people, especially the fact that the main gate had been blown open. The people of the Ning clan didn't react at first, but they soon noticed when Xiren on the roof. Their expressions suddenly became very ugly. I didn't expect you to have helpers? Ningyang looked at Xiren and then at Di Xiaofeng. His originally nervous expression returned to normal. I thought it would be an amazing helper, but it's just a Radiant Sun Realm guy. Don't tell me you don't know the strength of our Ning clan? Even if you come, you'll only be courting death. The Ning clan members present also looked relaxed. If the other party had a large group of people, perhaps they would be a little afraid. However, it was only one person. The so-called rescue was simply courting death. Xiren, hurry up and leave. Di Xiaofeng's expression was serious. He wanted to be with Yunyan, so he had already disregarded his life and death. However, he couldn't implicate Xiren. Xiren chuckled. Xiaofeng, are you kidding? I promised Beichen that I would take good care of you. If something happens to you, how am I going to explain it to Beichen? What time is it now? Still pretending to be a hero? A hint of coldness appeared in Ningyang's eyes. With just a glance, the two cultivators beside him had already leaped onto the roof. Catch that guy for me. With a leap, Xiren landed beside Di Beichen. You don't have to do it. I'll do it myself. Yo, this guy is interesting. Ningyang looked at Xiren suspiciously. If the other party showed a nervous expression, he would feel more at ease, but the other party's relaxed manner made him feel uneasy. Could it be that this person still had a backup plan? After all, under such circumstances, coming here alone was no different from courting death. At the same time, Di Xiaofeng also asked Xiren, what are you doing? I'm here to save you, Xiren smiled. Look at you, you've become like this in the blink of an eye. Di Xiaofeng was a little suspicious. This guy's behavior was indeed a little strange. While looking at Di Xiaofeng, Xiren took the opportunity to hand the teleportation talisman to him. This is a teleportation talisman. As long as you crush it, you'll be able to leave this place. In a while, when I'm dealing with them, take the opportunity to give the other talisman to Yunyan. Do you understand? Di Xiaofeng quietly put away the teleportation talisman. His eyes were filled with suspicion. Where did you get this? Chapter 70-47. They had met before, but they didn't have a teleportation talisman. I forgot that Beichen left it for me. Xiren felt a little guilty. How could he forget such a good escape talisman? What a waste. Di Xiaofeng's expression became very complicated, but he didn't say anything in the end. Ningyang and the others didn't know what the two were talking about, but from their expressions they could tell that they were communicating. Kid, since you're here today, why don't you stay and not leave? Ningyang looked at Xiren coldly. This guy had suddenly caused such a big commotion. Many people in the city had come to see him make a fool of himself. If he didn't deal with him as soon as possible, who knew what kind of news would spread tomorrow? When Xiren looked at Ningyang with a disdainful sneer on his face. Ningyang, don't be too proud. I'm here today to save them. What can you do? What a joke. You want to save them by yourself? Do you think we're all decorations? Let's not talk about anything else. If you have the guts, then let's fight one-on-one. Do you dare? Xiren pointed his sword at Ningyang. He was constantly thinking of a way, but he really couldn't think of any other way. If he took advantage of this opportunity to slip away, then the scene just now would definitely repeat itself. He had to think of a way to keep Xiaofeng and Yunyan together. Only then would they have a chance to leave. Hearing this, Ningyang's expression changed. Don't think I'll fall for your trick. You want to stall for time? I came to your Ning clan alone, but you don't even have the courage to fight me. Isn't that too disappointing? Xiren sneered and deliberately raised his voice. Isn't your Ning clan very impressive? You don't even have the courage to do that? Isn't that too laughable? The loud and clear voice reverberated, and the people who were gathered around to watch the fun also heard it clearly. The Ning clan has caused quite a ruckus this time. We've finally caught the culprit. This person has come personally. If Ningyang doesn't even have the courage to fight, then it's too embarrassing. Ningyang's expression became uglier and uglier. The other party was deliberately putting him on the spot. He had fought with Di Xiaofeng before, and it was because he wasn't Di Xiaofeng's match that this scar was left on his face. This guy in front of him was so aggressive, could it be that he was stronger than Di Xiaofeng? Ning Yang, since they've already said so, why don't you have a match? Ning Yaoyao chuckled, a playful look on her face. Ning Yang gritted his teeth and glanced at Ning Yaoyao. This woman was clearly taking revenge on him for what happened before. Good. I promise you. Ning Yang waved his hand, get out of the way and tie these two guys together. It won't be too late to deal with them after I've dealt with this guy. As soon as these words came out, the Ning clan's people all retreated a bit, leaving a large open space in the middle. When Xiren inadvertently glanced in Di Xiaofeng's direction, the development of this matter was just as he had hoped. As long as the two could get together, he believed that Xiaofeng would be able to seize the opportunity. Brat die. Ning Yang rushed towards Wen Xiren. Today, in front of everyone, he must teach this guy a lesson. Otherwise he would lose face in the future. Then let's try. Chapter 70-48. If it wasn't for the fact that he had to maintain his rationality, he would have already rushed forward to save his friend. The two figures rapidly drew closer, and a merciless punch whistled through the air. Ning Yang's attack was aimed directly at Wen Xiren's face. However, Wen Xiren leaned slightly to the side, allowing Xin Xing to circle around Ning Yang's back like a ghost. Only then did she land a punch on his face. Bang! The fierce punch fiercely landed on Ning Yang's face. The right side of Ning Yang's face instantly turned red and two of his teeth were knocked out. Xiren didn't give Ning Yang any leeway. He wanted to attract everyone's attention here so that Xiaofeng and the rest would have a chance. Bang bang bang. Xiren's figure was like the wind. His attacks strangely came from all kinds of tricky angles. Ning Yang was already a little dazed from the beating. Coupled with the sullen feeling in his heart, he was getting more and more disadvantaged. The faces of the Ning family members suddenly became a little ugly. With so many people watching from the side, if Ning Yang couldn't perform well, it would be really embarrassing. At the same time, when Di Xiaofeng realized that everyone's attention was attracted to this battle, he quietly moved to Bailey Yunyan's side. Although the guard at the side also noticed this, he didn't take it to heart. Anyway, these two guys were here and couldn't run at all. Bang! Xiren directly kicked Ning Yang and sent him flying. At the same time, his body fell down, his eyes filled with killing intent. Ning Yang noticed the rapidly approaching Wen Xiren, and his anger had completely disappeared in an instant. Instead, it was replaced by a deep sense of fear. This guy wanted to kill him. Save me! Ning Yang shouted. Ning Yaoyao and the rest also noticed that the situation was not right. Ning Yang was not this man's opponent at all. The killing intent in Xiren's eyes continued to grow. He wanted to kill this guy to vent his anger. At this moment, a terrifying palm wind attacked. Feeling the astonishing power, he could only passively withdraw his hand, but he was still inevitably hit. Ta. Xiren took a few steps back before stabilizing his body. When he raised his head, he saw a familiar figure appear beside Ning Yang. Master Qin? Ning Yang breathed a sigh of relief. The paleness on his face disappeared. Qin Ji glanced at Ning Yang but didn't say anything. Her gaze fell on Xiren more. Seeing this, Ning Yang couldn't help but look at the Ning family head, Ning Kaiyong. However, when he noticed the latter's cold eyes, his heart instantly felt a chill. Today's matter was only a small matter. He didn't even think that it would alarm the family head and Master Qin. Now the family head's impression of him was no different from a piece of trash. Trash. Ning Yangstia's head TT. When Xiren clutched his injured chest and looked up at Qin Ji. That. They didn't think that the Ning family would have an expert in the elementary immortal stage. That's why they ended up in this state. Ah. Xiren sneered. Didn't we agree on a one-on-one duel? What's the meaning of this? Chapter 70-49. Qin Ji didn't say anything and just turned to look at Ning Kaiyong. He didn't need to step in for this kind of thing. It was better for the patriarch to make the decision. This is my Ning clan's territory, so the rules are set by my Ning clan. Now the competition is over. Ning Kaiyong's cold face didn't change at all. He didn't even feel the slightest bit out of place when he said such shameless words, as if what he said was right. When Xiren couldn't help but sneer. I was wondering why Ning Yang was so shameless. It turns out he learned it from you, old man. You can even say such things in such a dignified manner. No wonder your Ning clan has such a status in Level Peak City. You must have changed to a group fight if you can't fight one-on-one, right? Impudent. Ning Kaiyong's cold face was covered with anger. It had been a long time since someone dared to speak to him in such a tone, let alone an unknown brat. Take him down. Ning Kaiyong waved his hand, and the Ning clan disciples quickly swarmed forward. When Ziren saw that the situation wasn't good, after paying attention to Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan, he turned around and fled without hesitation. The others obviously didn't expect this audacious guy to run away without saying anything. They were dumbfounded for a moment. What's going on? Was this brat faking it all the time? Take him back. Ning Kaiyong's face was livid. Their Ning clan wasn't a place where they could come and go as they pleased. The disciples quickly chased after him. Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan also took advantage of this opportunity to crush the teleportation talismans in their hands. However, at this moment their hands were suddenly grabbed and they couldn't move at all. Qingji raised her lips. It's impossible to escape from under my nose with a teleportation talisman of this level. Hearing this, Ning Yang and the others looked at the two in shock. They didn't know that these two had teleportation talismans in their hands. What's going on? Ning Yaoyao looked at Ning Yang speechlessly. You didn't know they had teleportation talismans? If it weren't for the fact that Master Qing was here, wouldn't all of them be able to do nothing if the two of them crushed the teleportation talisman? Qingji looked at the talisman in her hand and said, "This is the lowest grade talisman, but with your conditions, it's already not bad to have two of them. If I didn't guess wrongly, the reason why that brat was trying to please the crowd was to give you a chance, right? Unfortunately, all of you will have to stay here today." Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan's hearts instantly turned cold. None of them had expected such an outcome. Qingji was the person they feared the most, but she just had to appear now. At the same time, Ziren was also stopped on the other side. Not to mention how many people were chasing after him, the most important thing was that the surrounding people were also a hindrance. When Ziren was brought in front of Ning Kaiyong again, the latter's expression finally looked better. "Brat, my Ning clan isn't a place you can come to easily. So what?" Ziren looked coldly at Ning Kaiyong, then turned his gaze to the back. However, when he realized that Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan hadn't left and were being controlled by Qingji, his expression instantly turned ugly. What was going on? Chapter 70-50. Ziren's face was ashen. Although he didn't know what had just happened, it was obvious that Qingji had seen through it. That damn guy. Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan's eyes were filled with guilt. Ziren had finally thought of a way to save them, but they didn't expect it to end up like this. They're just a few small fries. There's no need to be angry. Killing them will serve as an example to others. Qingji said indifferently. Ning Kaiyong's attitude towards Qingji was clearly much better. Oh? Does Lord Qingji have any good suggestions? For such a daring guy who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, tearing him apart is the best result. Qingji's face rippled with a careless smile, but her words were extremely vicious. Aha, Lord Qingji is indeed a genius. Not only is her strength outstanding, but her thoughts are also very good. Ning Kaiyong waved his hand. Men, go prepare. Yes? Ning Yaoyao looked at Di Xiaofeng with emotion. She had finally taken a fancy to a good-looking man, but she didn't expect him to end up being torn apart by 5 horses. However, since Ning Kaiyong had already said this, the result couldn't be changed. 5 horses were quickly found. Ning Kaiyong's gaze fell on Ziren. This guy is the most troublesome. Let's get rid of him first. Ning Yang immediately stood up and tied the rope to Ziren's hands, legs, and neck. As for the other end, he tied it to the horse. Ziren didn't say anything. There was no way to reverse the situation. Although it was painful to die like this, it was better than being slowly tortured. Ziren, I'm sorry. Di Xiaofeng's eyes were also wet. An indescribable sense of guilt spread in his heart. He wanted to do something, but the only thing he could do now was to wait for death. When Ziren laughed heartily. What's there to be sorry about? We'll still be brothers in hell. Di Xiaofeng's lips also curved into a smile. Of course. Do it. Da-da. The sound of hooves rang out as the 5 horses ran in different directions at the same time. The cultivators of the Ning clan had already given them enough space. What followed was bound to be blood splattered on the spot. They did not want to be stained with blood. Ziren closed his eyes. As a cultivator, he had long expected that this day would come at any time. However, such a way of dying was beyond his expectations. A huge force came from his 4 limbs, and his body could be torn apart at any time. Just as he was waiting for the pain of death, he suddenly realized that it took longer than he expected. It was so long, that he started to wonder if he was already dead. Open your eyes. Xiren could not help but open his eyes when he heard a familiar chuckle. He suddenly realized that Di Baichen was right beside him. Oh my god, I'm about to die and I'm still hallucinating. But why isn't it Ying in the hallucination? It's Baichen. Di Baichen looked at Xiren's blank face and a trace of helplessness appeared in his eyes. This guy's mind was indeed different from ordinary people. Don't be in a daze. Do you want Baichen to keep holding you up? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled helplessly. It was only at this moment that when Xiren realized that something was amiss. Chapter 7051. When Xiren hurriedly stood up and looked at Di Baichen, Bailey Hongzhuang, Mo Yunjue, and Zhongli Mu in front of him, his mind was still in a daze. Although I asked Ying to seek revenge for me, isn't this a little too fast? Fast? Zhongli Mu was speechless. Isn't the speed at which you spread the news a little too slow? If we hadn't sensed that something was wrong and rushed over, we would have only seen your corpses by the time we arrived. When Xiren touched his neck and unconsciously revealed a joyful smile. I thought my neck would be separated from my body in the next second. I didn't expect you guys to arrive just in time. You guys are my saviors. Di Xiaofeng and Mo Yunjue heaved a sigh of relief when they saw this scene. However, their hearts sank when they remembered that Qingji was at the elementary celestial stage. Di Baichen, this guy is from the immortal region. Hurry up and leave. Don't worry about us. It was fine if the two of them died here, but they couldn't let more people come. It would be terrible if they were all wiped out. Ning Kaiyong looked at the four people who suddenly appeared and sneered. There are so many young people who don't care about their lives now. Ning Yang and the rest were surprised when they saw this scene. What's going on? They didn't see these people when they were chasing after Di Xiaofeng. Logically speaking, they shouldn't have been able to send a message in such a short time. However, it was impossible for them to escape from the Ning family with just these few people. If we're going to leave, we'll leave together. How can I leave you guys behind? Di Baichen smiled faintly. A trace of viciousness flashed across his eyes when he saw the wounds on the two people. These young people are hot-blooded. They think that this is a sign of brotherly love, but they're just sending themselves to their deaths. Qingji smiled faintly. If that's the case, we'll have to get rid of them all. Ning Kaiyong looked at Ning Yaoyao. Yaoyao, take some people and deal with these guys. When Ning Yang heard this, he couldn't help but feel anxious. Patriarch, haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Ning Kaiyong's voice was cold. Ning Yang immediately shut his mouth. He had to give such a good opportunity to Ning Yaoyao. At that time, all the credit would belong to Ning Yaoyao and he would only be in the wrong. Ning Yaoyao's expression was a little complicated. She looked at Di Baichen and then looked at Di Xiaofeng. She only felt that the two people's eyebrows were somewhat similar. If she guessed correctly, the two should be brothers. Di Xiaofeng was already handsome enough, but this guy in front of her seemed to be even more interesting. Letting her kill such a handsome man was simply a waste of God's gift. Ning Yaoyao pointed at the few people beside her. I'll give you a chance to perform. The members of the Ning family all looked at Ning Yaoyao in surprise. If they could perform well in front of the family head, their status in the family would be greatly improved in the future. It couldn't be better. Get rid of them quickly. Don't waste time. As soon as she finished speaking, Ning Yaoyao directly attacked Bailey Hongzhuang. She couldn't bear to attack a handsome man, but she was ruthless towards a woman. Chapter 7052. Ning Kaiyong and Qingji stood at the side indifferently as the Ning family disciples swarmed forward. They were not interested in such a childish battle. How dare you hurt my brother? I'll kill you. Zhongli Mu's eyes flashed with viciousness. He had been stirring up trouble for the past few years, and his naivety had long faded. Now there was only determination and viciousness. He would definitely take revenge on anyone who hurt his brother. When Xiren originally wanted to remind everyone that the strength of these people was not simple. It would be better for them to think of a way to take the opportunity to slip away. However, seeing that no one had any intention of backing down, he was puzzled. Did Xiaofeng's words not make it clear? Hey, don't tell me you guys are affected by Zhongli's temper? We're outnumbered. Xiren couldn't help but ask. Why do you care so much? Just fight, Zhongli Mu said. Xiren? I knew it. But Baichen and Hongzhuang, can you guys be so impulsive today? Bang. A sharp gust of wind whistled through the air. The Ning family disciples who had rushed forward were almost instantly beaten to the ground. The sudden force was completely beyond Ning Yaoyao's expectations. Caught off guard, she was violently thrown to the ground. The terrifying force seeped into her organs. She couldn't help but groan as blood flowed from the corner of her lips. She lifted her head again and looked at the beautiful lady in disbelief. This woman is so strong? Zhong Limu and the other two were dumbfounded when they realized that the person in front of them had been beaten to the ground before they could attack. Xiren subconsciously glanced at Qing Ji. Isn't this the same move she used on me just now? Did she suddenly betray us? When he noticed that everyone's eyes were focused on Bailey Hongzhuang, he couldn't help but be dumbfounded. You were the one who attacked. Xiren was so shocked that he couldn't even speak clearly. Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow, a faint smile on her lips. It wasn't me. Xiren was dumbfounded. Could it be you? When Xiren tidied himself up and silently chanted this sentence together. Immediately, his eyes widened in shock. ****, I haven't seen you for a while, and your strength is so heaven-defying. Zhong Limu was also completely stunned. I haven't even had a chance to make a move yet. Mo Yunjue looked thoughtfully at Bailey Hongzhuang, then looked at Di Beichen. No wonder the two of them didn't take it seriously when he mentioned that the Ning clan had an elementary celestial expert. It turned out that their strength had also reached the elementary celestial stage. These small fries are really not enough. Di Beichen said indifferently, didn't you say that the Ning family is very powerful? Let's get straight to the point. Ning Kaiyong and Qing Ji's expressions changed when they saw this. Ning Kaiyong looked at Qing Ji. Bailey Hongzhuang had attacked too quickly, but from her aura, he was almost certain that she was at the elementary celestial stage without a doubt. Qing Ji immediately understood. When she looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, it didn't seem like she was looking at a newborn calf. May I know where you're from, Your Excellency? The realm of chaos, Bailey Hongzhuang replied indifferently. Qing Ji was stunned. You're not from the realm of chaos. Chapter 7053. What does it have to do with you whether I am or not? Bailey Hongzhuang was too lazy to pay attention to Qing Ji. It was this guy who made her big brother and Yunyan suffer such serious injuries. He even thought of such a vicious idea like being dismembered by 5 horses. Today she will let this guy taste what it means to be dismembered by 5 horses. Qing Ji's expression darkened when she saw that Ning Yichen was not giving her any face. Lord Qing Ji, what's her strength like? Ning Kaiyong asked. Qing Ji studied Bailey Hongzhuang carefully. She had a complicated expression on her face. She's covered in a layer of restriction. I can't see her cultivation base. If that was not the case, he would not have been so careless earlier. Ning Kaiyong's heart sank. This was not good news. What if we fight her head-on? I'm not afraid if she's alone. Qing Ji looked at Di Beichen. The man in the lead doesn't look simple either. I'm afraid his cultivation base. Hearing this, Ning Kaiyong thought for a while and looked at Ning Yang. Didn't you say that you've already found out about their backgrounds? What's going on? Master, I've investigated their background. They're from Shiyun City. They just came to the chaotic immortal realm a few years ago. They don't have any background, Ning Yang quickly said. Then how did this woman in the elementary immortal realm come about? Ning Kaiyong's voice was filled with anger. Ning Yang could not figure it out himself. He could only say, maybe she just broke through to the elementary immortal realm. Although it was difficult for cultivators in the chaotic immortal realm to break through to the elementary immortal realm, it was not impossible. Every once in a while, there would be 1 or 2 geniuses who managed to break through. She just came to the chaotic immortal realm a few years ago. She's already broken through to the elementary immortal realm? Ning Kaiyong was so angry that he laughed. Only idiots would say something like that. Ning Yang was about to cry. He did not know how to explain all this. He had investigated everything thoroughly. Qing Ji noticed Ning Yang's expression. She knew what he said was true. She was relieved. Some people have good luck. It's possible for them to break through in a short period of time. However, it's not easy for one of them to appear. Since they were from the realm of chaotic immortal, it meant that they did not have any helpers. It was the easiest way to deal with them. Ning Kaiyong nodded slightly. If that was really the case, then he had just broken through and was definitely not a match for Qing Ji. It seems that you all don't dare to attack. Di Beichen's lips curled into a sneer. His fairy-like face was now covered with a layer of coldness. Then I'll have to make the first move. Whoosh! With a flash, Di Beichen appeared in front of Qing Ji. It was you who captured my big brother? Almost everyone present believed that Bailey Hongzhuang was the strongest in this team. They thought that she would be the one to make a move, but they did not expect that Di Beichen would be the first to rush out. For a moment they were dumbfounded. The moment Di Beichen's aura surged, Qing Ji's expression changed. Elementary celestial stage. Another elementary celestial. Normally, it was already very impressive for a single elementary celestial stage expert to appear in a city in the realm of chaos. Today there were actually 3 in Pingfeng City. So what? Qing Ji calmed down. You've just broken through to the elementary celestial stage. How dare you act so arrogantly in front of your senior? You're really a newborn calf. Chapter 7054. Hearing these extremely arrogant words, everyone present could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. Did this young man not know how powerful Qing Ji was? How could he say something like that? Qing Ji was enraged by his words. She sneered, "Kid, I'll teach you a lesson today." Is that so? Unfortunately, you can only be a ghost from today onwards. Di Beichen threw a punch at Qing Ji as soon as he finished speaking. A ferocious power exploded. From the moment he attacked, he did not show any mercy. Qing Ji did not treat Di Beichen as an opponent. A young kid who was arrogant because he had just broken through to the elementary celestial stage did not know the depth of the elementary celestial stage. Even if they were both in the elementary celestial stage, the time of breakthrough was different, so their strength was different. Bang! The 2 fists collided and a terrifying force burst out. Di Beichen did not know the depth of Qing Ji's strength, but after this exchange, he was relieved that the difference in strength between the 2 of them was not big. Everyone watched as the 2 of them exchanged blows. Every blow was fatal, and the strength of the elementary celestial stage was undeniable. Almost everyone was sure that Di Beichen was no match for Qing Ji. However, when they noticed that Di Beichen did not show any signs of being at a disadvantage, they could not help but be shocked. The Ning family has really kicked an iron plate this time. Actually, this matter is not that big of a deal. They are the ones who want to make such a big commotion. Isn't that so? Relying on the help of the elementary celestial stage, the Ning family is simply arrogant and despotic now. Anyone who provokes them in the slightest will be killed. It has long been a foul atmosphere. If there is really someone who can deal with them, it will undoubtedly be the best. Do you know how these young people offended them? I heard that it was because Ning Yang and those 2 youngsters found an illusory form bead. The illusory form bead originally belonged to those 2 youngsters. However, Ning Yang was not convinced and asked for help from his family. In the end, he directly put the blame on those 2 youngsters. TSK. These 2 youngsters are truly unlucky. Only, I did not expect them to have 2 incipient immortal stage helpers. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't know the whole story, nor did she know what Big Brother had stolen from the Ning family. After hearing that it was the illusion form bead, her face suddenly changed. Who would have thought that the thing that Big Brother was fighting for was actually for them? Di Xiaofeng and Bailey Yunyan were dumbfounded when they saw that Di Beichen wasn't at a disadvantage at all. No wonder this brat would say something like that. He already had a card up his sleeve. This kid is really abnormal. I haven't seen him for a while and his strength has improved so much. Di Xiaofeng shook his head with a smile. The worry in his heart disappeared at this moment. Beichen and Hongzhuang were both at the elementary immortal realm. The Ning family did not have 2 elementary immortal realm experts. Bailey Yunyan's face also bloomed with a trace of a surprised smile. Originally, she had already given up hope. Wanting to escape from this predicament was simply a fool's dream. She never thought that such a miracle would really happen. At this moment, the Ning family suddenly noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang, who had been standing at the side, suddenly moved. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was getting closer and closer, Ning Yang couldn't help but ask, "You? What are you doing?" Chapter 7055. Ning Kaiyong watched as Bailey Hongzhuang approached step by step. His expression became very complicated. He kept accumulating energy in his body, ready to attack at any time. However, as the head of the family, he knew the difference between the Radiant Sun realm and the elementary immortal realm. Even if it was only a step away, the difference in strength between the 2 was very shocking. If Bailey Hongzhuang attacked, he might be able to take a few hits, but in reality he was no match for her at all. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even look at Ning Kaiyong. She walked to the side of Bailey Yunyan and Bailey Hongzhuang. The cultivator in charge of guarding the side didn't dare to say anything. He just silently retreated a little, afraid that this woman would get angry and directly cripple him. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the injuries on Bailey Yunyan's body. She found that most of them were superficial wounds. Although she looked like she was on the verge of death, fortunately, her foundation wasn't injured. Bailey Hongzhuang took out a pill and fed it to her. Then she untied the ropes on her body. Yunyan, how are you? Di Xiaofeng looked at Bailey Yunyan worriedly. Previously, when he saw her covered in blood, he felt very distressed. However, he didn't know the specific injuries. Bailey Yunyan shook her head slightly. I'm fine. These 2 days they only beat me up. In order to attract you here they kept me alive. Hearing this, Di Xiaofeng felt even more guilty. I didn't protect you well? Don't say this. It's my fault. Bailey Yunyan stared at Di Xiaofeng. She would never forget the scene just now. To be able to find such a man was the happiest thing in her life. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two's affectionate appearance and smiled helplessly. Then she started to treat Di Xiaofeng's injuries. I'm afraid your leg will need to rest for a few days to completely recover. It's fine. Di Xiaofeng had a casual expression. Compared to being able to keep his life, this leg was really nothing. Not far away, when Ziren watched as Bailey Hongzhuang casually walked to the back of the Ning clan and put down Bailey Yunyan and Bailey Hongzhuang. His eyes shone with little stars of worship. Hongzhuang is really mighty. I've thought of thousands of ways to slap people, but none of them are as powerful as Hongzhuang's move. He had directly ignored all of them, yet they didn't dare to resist at all. Who else could do this? Zhong Limu nodded in agreement. Big sister Hongzhuang is really amazing, but how did they surpass me so quickly? He believed that his improvement during this period of time was already fast enough. He vaguely felt that he was not far from breaking through to the elementary immortal stage. After all, he had accumulated strength over the years and was stronger than them. Now that he was surpassed, he felt a little complicated. Their speed can't be judged by common sense. Mo Yunjue smiled faintly. He was already used to it. Bang! A terrifying attack spread out. The ground of the Ning clan cracked inch by inch. Di Beichen and Qing Ji both took a few steps back before stabilizing themselves. Everyone looked and saw that Di Beichen's chest had an additional wound. Blood was seeping out from the wound, dyeing his clothes red. On the other hand, Qing Ji stood there calmly. There were no wounds on her body. Ning Kaiyong let out a sigh of relief. The older, the wiser. This young man was obviously no match for Qing Ji. Chapter 7056. This young man can't compare to Qing Ji in the end. She's from the celestial region. Even if he's at a disadvantage, the situation is still uncertain. Don't forget there are 2 of them. That's true. I hope they can do well. Without Qing Ji, there are many people who want to kill the Ning clan. Ning Yang couldn't help but say, Lord Qing Ji, kill this guy. With Qing Ji's strength, she might be able to kill both of them. That would undoubtedly be the best outcome. However, Di Beichen shot a murderous look at Ning Yang when he heard this. Instantly, Ning Yang felt his mind being controlled. Ning Yang suddenly started laughing on the spot and even started dancing happily. Beauty, come on. Everyone saw Ning Yang dancing with a lewd smile on his face. He seemed to take everyone around him as beauties, and he even directly grabbed the patriarch of the Ning clan, Ning Kaiyong. Let go. Ning Kaiyong's expression darkened. Beauty, don't be so cold. Let Big Brother take good care of you. Ning Yang touched Ning Kaiyong's face with one hand, and his mouth kept moving closer as if he wanted to kiss her. Ning Kaiyong was already very displeased with Ning Yang. If it wasn't for him, the Ning clan wouldn't have caused such trouble. Now that he saw Ning Yang's lewd appearance, he was even more furious. *CK off, you disgraceful thing. Ning Kaiyong sent Ning Yang flying with a kick. The latter fell to the ground and clutched his chest as he spat out blood. However, this heavy blow still didn't make Ning Yang recover from his shock. He stood up again and charged over happily. Bang! Ning Kaiyong's eyes were cold. He slapped out with his palm and Ning Yang slowly fell to the ground. Only then did his eyes regain clarity. He looked at Ning Kaiyong in disbelief as if he'd never imagined that he would die at the hands of the patriarch. This old guy from the Ning clan is really ruthless. Zhong Limu's pupils constricted. Although he often caused trouble, even a vicious tiger wouldn't eat its own cubs. He was Ning Yang's grandfather, yet he actually killed his grandson with his own hands. This was really ruthless. This guy has always been a cold and emotionless person, so it's normal for him to do this. Ziren waved his hand as if he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. Ning Kaiyong didn't look guilty at all after killing Ning Yang, but there was a hint of fear in his eyes when he looked at Di Beichen. I didn't expect you to have such means. Only then did everyone come back to their senses. It turned out that all of this was done by Di Beichen. Immediately they felt a little apprehensive. Such a method was truly astonishing. However, this is useless. Ning Kaiyong's eyes were malicious. Lord Qingji, you must kill this guy. Fortunately, Qingji was strong enough. Otherwise, their Ning clan would have been wiped out. Hongzhuang, go and help Beichen. We'll be fine. Emperor Xiaofeng was very worried after noticing the changes. Qingji isn't easy to deal with. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even look up as she helped the two of them slowly walk towards where Wen Xiren and the rest were. Don't you have confidence in Beichen's ability? Hearing this, the two of them were stunned. This wasn't an ordinary opponent. Qingji has already lost. Bailey Hongzhuang's pleasant voice sounded. Chapter 7058. This fellow relied on Qingji for the Ning clan's current status. Now that Qingji is dead, he naturally has to find a new backer. Otherwise, the Ning clan will be completely finished. However, this fellow is at his wit's end now. He's actually thinking of recruiting the enemy he offended previously. The possibility of that isn't very high, is it? That might not be the case. This old fox has many tricks up his sleeve. Perhaps he can really persuade him. Otherwise, Qingji wouldn't have been invited by him back then. Everyone's expressions were extremely complicated. They had finally found a chance to topple the Ning family after so much difficulty. If they were really convinced by Ning Kaiyong, then the Ning family would really be able to reign supreme in Level Peak City in the future. However, just as everyone was extremely anxious, a discordant voice suddenly interrupted Ning Kaiyong's words. You shameless old man. I clearly know what kind of attitude you had towards me earlier. In the blink of an eye, you want to get closer to us? Dream on. Wen Xiren couldn't help but jump up. He was simply stunned by this shameless old man. He had done all kinds of bad things earlier, and now he wanted to shirk his responsibility with just this sentence? What a joke. Ning Kaiyong, who was racking his brains to think of a way to persuade him, was also shocked by Xiren's shout. Instantly, his expression became extremely ugly. How could he have forgotten about this troublemaker? Young master, just now. Beichen, you definitely can't pay attention to this old man. When Xiren looked at Di Beichen with an unusually firm attitude, Di Beichen smiled faintly. All right, Xiren. A figure quickly rushed to Wen Xiren's side. Wen Xiren was shocked at first, but after sensing that familiar aura, he relaxed and revealed a joyful smile. Ying, why are you back? Before he barged in, he had clearly told Ying not to continue staying here. When he didn't see this girl earlier, he thought that this girl had finally listened to him for once. He didn't expect her to appear again in the blink of an eye. Shengguan Ying's eyes were filled with tears. I asked someone to help me pass on the message and then I immediately rushed over. She knew that all of this would happen, yet she still wanted to leave. That was something she simply could not do. Even if they had to fight to the death here, at least they would be together. Even if one of them could survive, what was the point of that? Xiren reached out to wipe the tears from the corners of Shengguan Ying's eyes. Don't cry. Isn't everyone fine now? That's right. Shengguan Ying cried and laughed at the same time. It was really, young master, why don't we have a good talk? Ning Kaiyong was still unwilling to give up. Actually, this incident didn't cause too much damage. We can find a way to make up for all the problems. Di Beichen looked at Ning Kaiyong indifferently, his eyes filled with killing intent. Ning Kaiyong's heart trembled. He paused the words he wanted to say and didn't dare to say any more. Master Ning, look at what you're saying. Just a moment ago you wanted to kill all of them and in the next second, you've changed your mind. The change is really too fast. It makes people very suspicious of your original intentions. A man slowly walked in from the outside. The man was slightly plump and had a faint smile on his face. He didn't seem to have any lethality at all. Chapter 7059. Noticing the newcomer, Ning Kaiyong's face instantly darkened. Jiang and I, what are you doing here? It's rare to see such a genius. Can't I make friends with him? Jiang and I glanced at Ning Kaiyong indifferently, then turned to look at Di Beichen with a smile. His attitude was completely different. Young master, the Ning clan isn't the only powerful force in Level Peak City. This guy did such an unforgivable thing to you. It's really suspicious of his integrity. If you're interested in Level Peak City, my Jiang clan will show you our greatest sincerity. Old bastard. Ning Kaiyong cursed. Usually he had the most intense conflict with the Jiang clan. During this period of time, with the appearance of Qingji, he was prepared to use this opportunity to completely eradicate the Jiang clan. He didn't expect such an unforeseen event to happen today. It seemed that Jiang and I did have an advantage over him. Once he was convinced, the Ning clan would be in a terrible situation. After seeing this scene, the surrounding clans couldn't help but sigh. Jiang and I was really an old fox standing out at this time. However, everyone had to admit that this was indeed an excellent opportunity. If they could seize this opportunity to grab hold of these two experts, they would definitely be a well-known clan in other cities, let alone Level Peak City. Di Baichen looked at Jiang and I. Although he didn't know who this person was, he could tell from the changes in the surrounding people's expressions. However, he didn't have any thoughts about the grudges in Level Peak City. I'm not from Level Peak City, and I'm not interested in anything in the city. I'm only here today to avenge my brother and sister-in-law. Di Baichen's voice was cold, as if he didn't care about all this. Every injustice has its perpetrator, and every debt has its debtor. Your Ning clan provoked my brother first and even threatened to kill all of us. As the Ning clan's head, you can't shirk your responsibility. Hearing this, Ning Kaiyong's face had a hint of panic. His eyes darted around as he tried to think of a solution. However, Di Baichen didn't even give him a chance to speak. He suddenly attacked with his palm. Master, please show mercy. The patriarch of the Ning family shouted. Unfortunately, his words had no effect at all. He had lost his life in one move. Di Baichen's palm landed on the top of Ning Kaiyong's head, and the latter fell to the ground, no longer breathing. Everyone in the Ning clan didn't expect that their family head would die in the blink of an eye. Everyone was in an uproar. Ning Kaiyong's death was truly, rather sudden. Di Baichen turned to look at Di Xiaofeng. Well, hearing this, some of the cultivators from the Ning clan suddenly had a look of horror on their faces. The meaning of these words was very obvious. Obviously he was asking who else had hurt him. Anyone who had hurt him would not be spared. Di Baichen's gaze swept over the Ning family. As soon as he noticed the guilty expression on the other side's face, he had already discovered the problem. Immediately he was not polite and directly killed him, not leaving the slightest bit of mercy. Looking at the man's resolute and merciless appearance, everyone was secretly fearful. Thank you, second brother. A carefree smile appeared on Di Xiaofeng's face, and his eyes were filled with gratitude. If Di Baichen and the others hadn't arrived in time, he might have been left with eternal regret today. Since we're brothers, why are you being so polite? Chapter 70-60. Although the injuries looked serious, they could be completely healed after a few days of rest. Di Baichen once again looked at the Ning family. The people who were noticed all unconsciously lowered their heads, and in their hearts they had already cursed Ning Yang to death. If it wasn't for Ning Yang causing trouble and kicking an iron plate, the Ning clan wouldn't have fallen to such a state. No one in their clan could fight against an elementary immortal realm expert. As long as the other party wanted to, it would be easy for him to kill all of them. Today's grudge is over. I'll leave the rest to you guys. Di Baichen calmly took off Qing Ji and Ning Kaiyong's storage rings. These two guys should have a lot of resources on them. Today's matter made him want to destroy the entire Ning clan. However, not everyone was involved. Since the people who needed to be dealt with were dealt with, there was no need for him to do the rest. The Ning clan had been too arrogant recently and offended many people. There was no need for him to do anything. Many people would take this opportunity to take revenge. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone in the Ning clan first heaved a sigh of relief, then became nervous again. If Di Baichen didn't do anything, it meant that they still had a chance to live. However, thinking about the other forces in Pingfeng City, their situation wasn't much better. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't want to stay for long. Yun Yan clearly didn't have a good time these days. Her mental state wasn't good either. It was better for her to find a place to rest. Jiang and I looked at the direction of Di Baichen's group, and his eyes flashed with a ray of light. When they returned to the inn, they first sent Bailey Yunyan and Di Xiaofeng into the room. Only when Yunyan took off her clothes did Bailey Hongzhuang apply medicine on her wounds. Hongzhuang, will there be scars on my body? Looking at the wounds on her body, Bailey Yunyan's eyes showed a trace of worry. The scars were all over her body. It looked really ugly. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. If I leave a scar on your body, won't Big Brother blame me? After understanding the meaning of these words, Bailey Yunyan breathed a sigh of relief. Pleasantly surprised, she said, Hongzhuang, thank you. You're still worried about these things at a time like this? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and shook her head. Don't worry. With me here, you won't have any scars left. Bailey Hongzhuang was about to leave after applying medicine to all the wounds on Bailey Hongzhuang's body, but Bailey Yunyan suddenly hugged her. Yunyan? Hongzhuang, thank you. Bailey Union's voice was choked with sobs. If you guys hadn't arrived, we would have really died today. Bailey Hongzhuang reached out and patted Bailey Union's back. This experience must have left a serious shadow in her heart. Not to mention Yunyan, even she could not help but feel a lingering fear. If they hadn't come in time, then it would have been a lifetime of regret. The heavens won't be so cruel. No matter what happens to us, we'll turn misfortune into blessing. The clear and melodious voice had a healing power. Bailey Union's somewhat agitated mood quietly calmed down. You must be tired these days. Eat something and rest early. It won't be too late to have a good chat after you've rested enough. Bailey Union nodded slightly. Okay. Chapter 7061. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't stay for long. They left one after another after telling them what they needed to pay attention to in case of injuries. Even though the incident this time had been dangerous, the two of them must have grown closer after going through this ordeal. Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes, the corners of her lips curling up slightly. Beichen and Xiaofeng really were brothers. They were very similar in this aspect. The next day, Bai Li Yanche and Shengguan Ru finally arrived at the inn. When they saw that everyone was safe and sound, they finally let out a sigh of relief. Yanche, you guys were too slow. Xiren looked at Bai Li Yanche speechlessly. If we had waited for you guys to come and rescue us, I'm afraid we wouldn't even be able to find their corpses. Don't be so heartless. Bai Li Yanche sat down at the side. If we hadn't been the first to discover that something was wrong with Xiaofeng and the others being gone for so long, everyone wouldn't have immediately come looking for you. Even though I didn't show up yesterday, you have to thank me properly. Otherwise, you really would have been torn apart by 5 horses. When Xiren chuckled. Actually, he had already learned the whole story from Hongzhuang and the others yesterday. The two of them had gone to a nearby city and hadn't arrived yet. If this guy hadn't discovered the abnormality, then it really would have been too dangerous. I knew you were true to me. Xiren put a hand on Bai Li Yanche's shoulder, practically hanging on it. No matter what, we are true love. Move aside. Bai Li Yanche pushed Xiren to the side in disgust. He quietly glanced at Ling and said, My true love isn't you. Ioyo, you've really forgotten about your brothers now that you have a wife. You have to learn from me in this aspect. Xiren. Shengguan Yingying's voice rang out. Yingying, have you eaten breakfast yet? Do you want me to send it up for you? When Xiren looked upstairs. What happened yesterday had given Yingying quite a shock. She had fallen asleep very late last night. He thought that she would not wake up this morning, but she had actually woken up. All right. Bai Li Yanche curled his lips as he looked at the guy who went to order breakfast. How shameless. Bailey Hongzhuang also came out of the house after noticing Bai Li Yanche's arrival. Have you heard the news? Bai Li Yanche nodded slightly. Right now the entire Pingfeng city is spreading the news. We heard about it from the streets and alleys as soon as we arrived. Fortunately, you guys were faster. His previous carefree attitude was also fake. Fortunately, they managed to make it in time. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. How are Xiaofeng and the others? I've suffered some injuries, but fortunately they aren't serious. I'll be fine after a period of rest. That's good. Bai Li Yanche was completely relieved. Then we'll stay here for a while. It won't be too late to leave after we've recovered. That's what we were thinking. Big brother, when your injuries are better, go back to the family to take a look. You haven't been back for so long. Father and mother miss you very much. Di Xiaofeng nodded. Indeed, we haven't been back for a long time. Di Beichen saw that Di Xiaofeng's mental state was good. The injury on his leg didn't affect him too much. He immediately recounted what happened during this period of time. After hearing all this, a strange look appeared in Di Xiaofeng's eyes. Chapter 7062. Are you sure that the Qing devil has appeared in the immortal realm? Di Xiaofeng found it hard to believe. He had been in the chaotic immortal realm for so long, and he had almost forgotten about the Qing devil. He didn't expect that such a thing would happen. I heard this news from City Lord Yang, so it shouldn't be wrong, Yang Kai said with a smile. Di Beichen's face was dignified. He had come back in a hurry and had forgotten to ask again. So, it's a little tricky. So you plan to go to the immortal realm to look for Xiaosou? That's right. Di Xiaofeng was silent for a moment. Then he said, since that's the case, let's go back to the family after Yunyan and I have recovered. Although our cultivation levels are not high enough in the chaotic immortal realm, we can still protect the family. Even if the Qing devil does appear, we still have the strength to fight. Di Baichen relaxed a little when he heard that. If you want it, that's the best. They didn't feel safe leaving Xiao He and Xiao Bai there. With Xiaofeng's current cultivation level, he was almost invincible in the upper realm. Even if Xiao Shou went to find trouble, they could fight her. Don't worry. Leave the family to me. If there's a problem that I can't solve, I'll come to you. Di Xiaofeng patted Di Baichen's shoulder. As your big brother, I've always relied on you to take care of me. I can always help with the family's affairs. Di Baichen smiled faintly. He felt a little relieved. I've been tired for the past few years. I'll take the opportunity to rest when I go back. Those little fellows in the clan should also be properly trained. Their cultivation needs to be raised as soon as possible. Di Xiaofeng's eyes shone brightly. His vision was much broader than before. He also hoped to pass on his skills to the family's disciples. Only then could the family become the strongest family in the upper realm. Xiren was also surprised when he heard the news. Baichen, are you going to the immortal realm? I have no choice but to go now. So I also want to go with you. Xiren sighed. Then he looked at everyone seriously and said, haven't you realized that it's impossible to not follow Baichen and the others? When we followed them, our progress was not small. But when we separated, those two fellows began to increase their cultivation by themselves, completely leaving us in the dust. We haven't seen each other for more than 2 years, and look at the difference between us. As soon as he said this, Bai Li Yanche and the others looked at each other in dismay. They thought about it carefully, and realized that this was indeed the case. Then according to what you said, when Baichen and the others return, won't we? When Xiren shrugged. I have a feeling that you won't be able to break through to the elementary immortal stage by then. Di Xiaofeng's face darkened. Shut up. Di Baichen smiled faintly and shook his head. Big Brother and the others will be returning to the upper realm in a few days. What are your plans? If we stay in the immortal realm of chaos, I'm afraid we won't be able to return for a while. Xiren and the others naturally realized this. If they went to the immortal realm with their radiant sun cultivation levels, they might not be able to enter at all. Although there might be a glimmer of hope with Baichen and the others protecting them, it would still be troublesome. Chapter 7063. Xiren thought for a while and looked at Shengguan Yingying. What's your plan? I want to go back. Shengguan Yingying thought for a while and said, we haven't gone back to see our father for a long time. The Di family might be in danger. I think it's safer for us to go back. With their current situation, they would have many opportunities to gain experience in the future. However, if something happened to the Di family and they were not there, it would be terrible. I think so too, Xiren said with a smile. Shengguan Yingying heaved a sigh of relief. After what happened yesterday, she felt that nothing was more important than being with her family. As cultivators, they had a lot of time to do other things. However, when they were in danger, they had to do something. Actually, this is good. When Baichen and the others arrive at the crossing celestial realm, if they find something good there, they might take the opportunity to take us there. Xiren's eyes lit up. With the chaos ring, it would be very convenient for them to go to another place. If they could take the opportunity to take a look, it would be an eye-opener. After discussing for a while, they decided that Bai Li Yanche and Ling Er would go back to the upper realm together. With Baichen and Hong Zhuang, it would be very convenient for them to come to the chaotic celestial realm in the future. Zhongli Mu and Mo Yunjue decided to continue to gain experience in the chaotic celestial realm. With Gong Jun here, it would be very convenient for them. After another 2 days, a round figure appeared at the door of the inn. Gong Jun's eyes were filled with tears as he looked at Di Baichen in the lobby and said, Boss, I finally found you. Why are you here? Boss, what are you talking about? I am your man. Naturally, I will be wherever you are. Gong Jun poured a cup of water and drank it. Then he said, why didn't you tell me that you were leaving? It took me a long time to find you. If it wasn't for the fact that this matter has caused such a stir, I wouldn't have gotten the news. You can rest assured now. The matter has been resolved. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Gong Jun nodded. With boss and sister-in-law taking action, it will naturally be a piece of cake. Gong Jun is here too? When Xiren heard the commotion downstairs and ran out of the house. Now that the inn had been booked by them, no one else would appear except for their own people. Hearing this familiar voice, Gong Jun could not help but raise his head. When he saw the figure upstairs that he had been thinking about day and night, he immediately gritted his teeth and said, when Xiren, come down. Gong Jun, what's with your expression? When Ziren jumped down from the second floor and said with some confusion, "I am Wen Ziren. Why are you looking at me like that?" After seeing this scene, Zhong Limu already understood the situation. He could not help but give Ziren a look, but helplessly found that this guy did not notice him at all. Zhong Limu wanted to help but was unable to do so. It was better to let this guy fend for himself. "You. Hurry up and pay back the debt that you owe me for these 2 years." Gong Jun roared with his hands on his hips. When Ziren was slightly stunned. "Gong Jun, didn't we already discuss this matter before? Why did you suddenly change your attitude?" Chapter 70-64. At this moment, when Ziren couldn't help but turn to look at Zhong Limu. He had already told Zhong Limu about this matter, only to find that the latter had already lowered his head and silently retreated, constantly reducing his presence. "That's not right." Ziren was dumbfounded. "I only told Zhongli about this matter. This shop being smashed has nothing to do with me. This matter is inextricably linked to you." Gong Jun's eyes widened in anger. If it wasn't for this fellow being noticed when he was talking to Zhongli, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion wouldn't have suffered such a tragic fate. "Hehe, if you have something to say, let's talk nicely. This matter is definitely an accident." Ziren's smile was filled with guilt, and in the next instant he ran behind Di Baichen. "Baichen, yesterday I was injured while protecting your big brother. Seeing that I've contributed so much, help me settle the debt for these 2 years. "If I settle the debt, then what about the compensation?" Di Baichen raised his eyebrows. "Hehe, it's still a debt, it's still a debt. You might as well settle it all together. Just tell me if we're brothers or not." Everyone looked at Ziren's shameless appearance and shook their heads. In terms of shamelessness, there was probably no one present who could be compared to Ziren. "We're brothers?" A warm and magnetic voice sounded, filled with strong determination. Ziren was almost prepared for Di Baichen to ridicule him, but when he suddenly heard such a serious answer, he was a little surprised. However, when he noticed Baichen's sincere gaze, he couldn't help but smile. "Put his debt on my head." Di Baichen looked at Gong Jun. For yesterday's matter, he owed Ziren a word of thanks. The reason this guy was willing to risk his life was actually because of him. He didn't directly thank him because he understood that with their relationship, there was no need to say such things. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest couldn't help but be moved. Although Baichen didn't usually say such things, and sometimes acted as if he despised Ziren, in reality, they all knew that Baichen treated Ziren as his own brother. "Yes." Gong Jun nodded. Baichen really loves me." Ziren's face was filled with pride. "Everyone, young Master D, I'm sorry to intrude, I hope I'm not disturbing you." A slightly deep voice sounded from outside the door. Everyone looked to see the head of the Jiang family, Jiang and I. Head of the Jiang family? In the past few days, even if they didn't inquire about the news, they still learned about the changes in the city from the servants and cooks. After the head of the family, the rest of the powerhouses, they couldn't help but take action. Almost overnight, the Ning family was completely disbanded. Among them, the one who contributed the most was the head of the Jiang family, Jiang and I. After swallowing the Ning family's resources, the Jiang family had become the most powerful powerhouse in Pingfeng City. They didn't care about this, but they didn't expect Jiang and I to visit. Hearing this, Di Baichen's expression changed. It seemed that the head of the Jiang family already knew their identity in a short period of time. Chapter 70-65. Back then, the Array Master competition was extremely sensational. Qingyang City suddenly turned the tables and shone brilliantly. Almost every city knew about it. He was also present at that Array Master competition. Di Baichen and Jiang and I left a deep impression on him. At that time, there were countless city lords who wanted to rope them in. However, he was only one of the forces in Level Peak City and wasn't qualified to do so. A few days ago when he saw Di Baichen at the Ning family, he felt that the two looked familiar. However, he couldn't recall when he had seen them. When he recalled that these two had never come to Level Peak City before, he thought of other possibilities and finally came to this conclusion. Family head Jiang has a good memory. Di Baichen smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. This person must have a purpose for coming here today. Young Master D, this is the property of the Ning family. Jiang and I took out a storage ring and placed it on the table. The enmity between us and the Ning family has been settled. I also heard that the Ning family was settled by family head Jiang. This loot naturally belongs to the Jiang family. It has nothing to do with us. Di Beichen's expression was calm. His gaze didn't even linger on the storage ring. Looking at his unmoved appearance, Jiang and I also understood that the Ning family's property was a huge fortune to others. However, to Di Beichen it clearly wasn't that attractive. Not to mention his identity as an array master, just his elementary immortal realm cultivation made it very easy for him to earn money. You can't say that. Jiang and I smiled. If young Master Di didn't take care of the most troublesome part, all of this wouldn't have gone so smoothly. The subsequent matters didn't require much effort. To be honest, we have always been sworn enemies with the Ning family. During this period of time, we have been suppressed by them. If young Master Di didn't appear, I'm afraid the Jiang family would have ended up like this. Whether young Master Di cares or not, our Jiang family will remember this favor in our hearts. Therefore we can't keep these things for ourselves. Young Master Di, please accept them. This way we can feel better. Hearing Jiang Ni's words, everyone felt rather comfortable. They had to admit that Jiang and I was very skillful with his words. His words made everyone unable to feel any disgust towards him. How could Di Beichen not understand that Jiang and I was trying to curry favor with them in order to befriend them? However, putting aside the fact that they wouldn't stay in Level Peak City, they didn't even plan to stay in the chaotic celestial realm. At this time, Gong Jun ran out with a smile. Since Patriarch Jiang has said so, then we will accept this. Thank you very much. Boss, the Ning clan is a big clan after all. They must have left many things behind over the years. It would be a waste if we don't take it. Gong Jun sent a telepathic message anxiously. He was really convinced. Boss was good at everything, but why couldn't he change this bad habit of not loving money? As a cultivator, how important were cultivation resources? Now that someone had come knocking on his door, he would be a fool if he didn't take it. Everyone noticed Gong Jun's money grubber appearance and couldn't help but shake their heads helplessly. This situation really wasn't out of their expectations at all. This fellow had never had any resistance against such things. Chapter 7066. Hee, I'm boss follower Gong Jun. Gong Jun introduced himself. So it's young Master Gong Jun, nice to meet you. Jiang and I smiled again and looked at Gong Jun with a friendlier gaze. He wasn't afraid that Di Beichen would accept the storage ring, he was afraid that Di Beichen wouldn't accept it. Now that someone had accepted it for him, the effect would be the same. First time unfamiliar, second time familiar. Gong Jun laughed shamelessly. The smile on Jiang Ni's face deepened. This guy in front of him was a helper. Young master is right. That's how it is, huh? Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at the two who were chatting happily. Helplessness appeared on their faces. The more they talked about this topic, the more they got along. Di Beichen looked at Gong Jun's impatient look. He was afraid that Di Beichen would refuse and kept winking at him. Di Beichen found it funny. Forget it, let him be. Otherwise, with this guy's character, I don't know how long he would nag. After Gong Jun noticed that Di Beichen didn't object, he understood that this was tacit approval. Suddenly he was even more fearless. Don't worry, we have received your kind intentions. If there is anything you need help with in the future, as long as we can do it, we will definitely lend a hand. Gong Jun smiled and said, however, my boss and the others usually pay more attention to improving their cultivation, so they often go to other places to gain experience. I understand this is what you should do. Jiang and I nodded repeatedly. There was a law in the cultivation world. Cultivators who improved their strength very quickly were often elusive. Most of the time they went to different places to gain experience. Looking at it from another perspective, if it wasn't for this method, it would be impossible to achieve such achievements. Therefore, after a few words from Gong Jun, Jiang and I left very satisfied. Before leaving, he even called Gong Jun brother. Looking at this guy's beaming reply, Xiren said, "You've struck it rich, haven't you?" Gong Jun chuckled. Then he noticed Di Beichen and hurriedly said, "Nonsense. I'm doing this for boss." Xiren dragged out his tone, revealing his suspicions. We are about to head to the crossing celestial region. I'm afraid we won't be back for a while. Since you promised him, you can help him if he needs help in the future, Di Beichen said calmly. Gong Jun was stunned. Boss, are you not going to bring me along when you go to the immortal domain? Beichen and Hongzhuang are going together. Why are you following them? Xiren's face was full of disdain. Moreover, your cultivation level is not high enough. If you are detained in the crossing immortal domain, won't we have to spend effort to save you? Don't you want your immortal treasure pavilion? Di Beichen asked. Gong Jun was a little disappointed. However, after thinking about it carefully, what he said made sense. He could only say helplessly, "All right, boss. Don't forget about me when you go to the crossing immortal domain." With that, Gong Jun wanted to lay on Di Beichen's body with resentment. At this moment, Bai Lian Che took a step forward and pushed this guy who was full of resentment to the side. "Don't worry. Brother-in-law's assets are still with you. He definitely won't forget about you." Gong Jun's eyes brightened. "That's right. Then I don't have to worry. If I don't come, these will all be mine." Chapter 7067. After resting in Pingfeng City for another 2 days, Di Xiaofeng and the others returned to the upper realm. Gong Jun and Mo Yunjue went back to Shiyun City. Bailey Hongzhuang and Jiang Qin also set off for crossing immortal domain. Before they set off, Gong Jun had already helped them find the route to crossing immortal domain. Of course, Jiang and I also contributed a lot. The two of them had become good friends since their last conversation. Gong Jun was unfamiliar with this place, so he asked Jiang and I to help him find the route quickly. Although he found it strange that Di Beichen and the others needed the route to crossing immortal domain, he didn't ask about it in the end. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the route in her hand. She found that the distance between crossing immortal domain and immortal domain was relatively close. As for setting off from chaotic immortal domain, they had to take a detour. However, according to Jiang and I, it seemed that it was easier to set off from chaotic immortal domain. It was more troublesome to set off from immortal domain. Now that the passage from crossing immortal domain to immortal domain is sealed, even if we reach immortal domain, it would be very difficult to find a breakthrough. Therefore, it's better to set off from chaotic immortal domain. Although it will take more time, the chances of success will be higher. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the map in her hand and said her thoughts. Then she looked up at Di Beichen and asked for his opinion. Di Beichen nodded slightly. "I have the same idea. We have to pass through a few teleportation formations on the way. When we reach this forest, we can only rely on our feet." Bailey Hongzhuang knocked carefully. "It would take a long time, but they should be able to make it. Let's set off." Di Beichen smiled. "With Big Brother and the others in the family, we don't have to worry for now. I'm thinking about another problem." "What problem?" "This time, the cultivator from the immortal region of the Ning family is called Qing Ji. This kind of name is not common. I wonder if she is related to Qing Devil?" Di Beichen was deep in thought. At that time, the situation was really urgent, so he didn't leave anyone alive and didn't have the chance to ask about it. Now that he thought about it carefully, he felt that there might be some connection between them. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it carefully and felt that their names were similar. Qing Ji came from the immortal region. Qing Devil is also in the immortal region now. However, if he is really Qing Devil's man, why did he come to the chaotic immortal region? Maybe it's because he's not strong enough in the immortal realm, so he wants to come to the immortal realm of chaos to develop. Di Beichen smiled faintly. "All of this is just my guess. Maybe the two of them just happen to have similar names." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. This kind of thing could only be guessed before it was confirmed. If he is really Qing Devil's man, it's not a big deal. Anyway, we will meet him sooner or later. Bailey Hongzhuang's tone was carefree. If it was in the past, they would be very worried. However, they had broken through to the elementary immortal stage now. Even though the intensity of their essence force couldn't be compared to Qing Devils, they were undoubtedly more capable of protecting themselves than when they were in the Radiant Sun realm. Even if they couldn't defeat him, they still had a chance to run away. On the second floor of the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. "Young Master Gong, is Master going to the chaotic immortal region like this? Will it be a waste of time?" "It's good for Master to go there. Recently, those guys are getting more and more active. They have begun to reach out to us." Chapter 7068. I'm afraid we can't keep hiding like this. Forget about the eldest princess, there's also the fourth prince. Once Master is found, the black-robed man's face was gloomy, and there was a hint of worry in his eyes. "Don't leak any information about Master. I'll protect Master." Gong Jun narrowed his eyes as a fierce look flashed across his face. "It's fine if the fourth prince behaves himself. However, if he causes too much trouble, then you have to be careful. Those guys are not easy to deal with," the black-robed man said in a deep voice. "I understand. They're too naive to fight with me." Gong Jun withdrew the vicious look in his eyes and said, "I have something for you to do." Yes. The journey to the crossing celestial domain was very long. During the journey, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had seen the different scenery in other cities. However, the two of them did not plan to waste any time. They kept on rushing. Under such circumstances, the two of them were extremely fast. Looking at the forest in front of her, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly raised into a smile. We'll arrive at the border between the crossing celestial domain and the chaotic celestial domain once we pass through this forest. Di Beichen looked at the forest in front of him. According to the map, the mountain range was not small. It would take at least half a month to pass through the mountain range. Other than that, they only had the map. However, they did not know how to get to the crossing celestial domain. Beichen, what's on your mind? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. The door to the crossing celestial domain has always been closed. It must be an unusual way to enter. Both of us have never been here before. I'm afraid we have to ask someone who knows the situation. Bailey Hongzhuang understood when she heard that. She looked around carefully and realized there was no one else around. She could not help but ask, I wonder if there'll be anyone after we pass through this forest? Going to the crossing celestial domain was a taboo topic in both the chaotic celestial domain and the chaotic celestial domain. If they could not find someone reliable, they could not tell anyone about it. There should be. Di Beichen looked serious. If Jiang and I could get this map, it means that someone knows the situation here very well. There must be some people at the junction of the two places. But how to find them and find a way to pass through, I'm afraid it will take some effort. Looking at the man's confident appearance, the worry in Bailey Hongzhuang's heart lessened a bit. Crossing the celestial domain was very important to the upper realm. If they couldn't find a way, it would be very troublesome for them to ascend in the future. His family members could use the Chaos Ring to travel to the chaotic immortal realm. As for the others, they could only stay in the upper realm for the rest of their lives. Immortal domain. Hearing the news from his subordinate, Qing Devil frowned slowly. You said Qing Ji is dead? Yes, Qing Ji's longevity lamp has been extinguished. Qing Devil narrowed her eyes and said, he went to the chaotic immortal realm this time and lost his life there. This guy is getting worse and worse. Maybe he was targeted by someone in the immortal domain. There are no cultivators in the primitive celestial realm in the chaotic immortal realm. It shouldn't be a problem there. Qing Devil smiled slightly. Her eyes were full of malice and she said, in that case, let's find out who did it. Chapter 7069. My Lord Qing Devil, many people still don't believe your identity after you possess someone else's body. Those people have been hoping that you won't come back. They must be afraid that you will become stronger. That's why they did such a thing. The man's face was solemn. There was anger in his eyes. If that's the case, the realm of chaotic immortals should stop their actions for now. We should find out who did it first. Otherwise there will be another Qing Ji. Qing Devil narrowed his eyes. There was no emotion on his calm face. However, his eyes, which were as sinister as a viper's, revealed his mood. Once he found out who dared to attack his people, he would never let them go. Yes. By the way, have you found anything about the lower realms that I asked you to investigate? I've already screened them according to your description. However, there are too many lower realms. Many of them fit the criteria. The man wore a troubled expression. They had never paid much attention to the lower realms. There were too many realms to count and they were all similar. However, it was not easy to screen them based on the information that Qing Devil had given them. Qing Devil's face turned cold. He waved his hand and said, then take your time. No matter how long it takes, you have to find this realm. Yes. We will do it as soon as possible. You can leave now. Qing Devil leaned against the back of the chair. Thinking about what had happened in the upper realm, the anger in his eyes grew stronger. When I find it, all of you will die. What had happened in the upper realm was a disgrace in his eyes. Moreover, those two guys had copied a lot of the true essence. He had to get his hands on such treasures. Walking in the forest, Bailey Hongzhuang found that there were not many demonic beasts in the forest. She didn't see many people along the way. Her mood became very complicated. In terms of scenery, the mystery realm is the best. Di Beichen suddenly said when he noticed the worry in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and nodded with a smile. It's also green, but the environment there is more beautiful and full of vitality. They were clearly lush trees, but for some reason they looked different. After the dust settles, we will return there to cultivate. Compared to this place, the environment in the secret realm was undoubtedly much better. Bailey Hongzhuang took out a few fruits and handed them over. Try them first and feel the aura there. While the two of them were eating and joking, Di Baichen suddenly pulled Bailey Hongzhuang into a nearby bush. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't understand what was going on, but she still didn't say a word. She quietly stayed at the side, paying attention to the movements outside. A moment later, a figure slowly appeared. Noticing this figure, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyebrows showed a trace of surprise. After arriving here, the woman stopped for a moment and looked around in confusion. She didn't continue to move forward until she found that there was no movement. After the woman walked a certain distance away, Bailey Hongzhuang said, "Isn't she a disciple of the Ning family?" She remembered that the woman had attacked her when she had just arrived. At that time she only seriously injured the woman, but didn't kill her directly. She didn't expect to see her here. Chapter 70. Di Baichen raised his eyebrows in a relaxed manner. "I remember now. This girl's name seems to be Ning Yaoyao." Bailey Hongzhuang said. "You know her name?" Di Baichen was a little surprised. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "I heard it from Yun Yan." She had heard from Yun Yan that Ning Yaoyao had taken a liking to her elder brother and wanted him to marry her. She had heard the whole story. For a girl, this kind of thing was indeed the most memorable. "Why is she following us? Is she planning to take revenge?" Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She heard that Jiang and I and the other forces had already cleaned up the Ning clan. Other than a few strong cultivators who took the opportunity to escape, the rest had been taken care of. Maybe? Di Baichen pondered deeply. With her strength, wanting to take revenge was a bit of a fool's dream. "Let's follow her and see what she's going to do." Bailey Hongzhuang looked indifferent. Anyway, with their strength, they didn't have to worry about Ning Yaoyao's tricks. They might as well see what she was planning or what other trump cards the Ning clan had. Years of experience told her that no matter what kind of force it was, she couldn't let her guard down because no one knew what other tricks they had up their sleeves. Ning Yaoyao was obviously very good at tracking. Otherwise, Bailey Hongzhuang and Yun Yan wouldn't have been unaware of her existence. Therefore, the two kept a certain distance while following her. "He was clearly in front of me before. Why did he suddenly disappear?" Ning Yaoyao looked melancholy. Ever since she mastered her tracking technique, she had never failed. She didn't expect to lose someone this time. It was really depressing. "I wonder what they're doing here. Could it be that they're going to the crossing immortal domain? It's so rare to see such a peerless handsome man. I'm even thinking of turning over a new leaf. Why did he disappear?" Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen had always been a little further away. If they heard Ning Yaoyao's words, who knew what they would think? Half a month later, they finally made it through the forest. Looking at the flat road ahead, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised to find that there was actually a small town here. This town obviously couldn't be compared to the cities outside, but it still seemed to be quite large. He hadn't seen any other cultivators in the forest, but he didn't expect that there would be so many people nearby. "It seems that we should be able to find a way to enter." Di Baichen smiled faintly. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She took out a pill and gave it to Di Baichen. After the two of them took it, their faces changed. This was all thanks to the method that Granny Hua had taught her. Although it didn't last long, it was already very useful. After successfully changing their appearances, the two openly followed Ning Yaoyao into the same inn. When the other people in the inn noticed the three unfamiliar faces, a strange look appeared in their eyes. In this place, strangers didn't appear often. Now that a few strangers suddenly appeared, they naturally had to be more vigilant. After Bailey Hongzhuang and Yun Yan noticed this situation, they understood that this was a more exclusive place. They could only order some food quietly and enter the room. Chapter 70-71. Unlike Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Bai, Ning Yaoyao did not seem to understand the situation very well. She was thinking about how to find Di Baichen and was curious about this place. She asked the shop owner about it. Seeing Ning Yaoyao's good looks, many men became interested and took the initiative to answer her questions. Bailey Hongzhuang asked Xiao He and Xiao Bai to gather information. These two little fellows were undoubtedly the most familiar with gathering information. The two little balls, one black and one white, mixed with the mud and rolled under Ning Yaoyao's table. No one noticed them at all, so the two little fellows listened to the news openly. The two of them were not in a hurry. They ate slowly and observed the situation through the window at the same time. The map only led to this point, and there was no other information about it. Therefore, if they wanted to enter the crossing immortal domain, they had to rely on the help of the people here. The two of them hid their cultivation and controlled themselves to be in the Radiant Sun stage. Two people in the elementary immortal stage were definitely the target of everyone here. Although this place is close to the crossing immortal domain, I don't know what method they used to communicate, Bailey Hongzhuang thought. According to her judgment, the purpose of this town should be to do business with the people of the crossing immortal domain. She had heard a little about this before, mainly when she was caught and forced to mine. There were many spirit-devouring ores in the crossing immortal domain. The people of the crossing immortal domain needed the spirit-devouring ores but were unwilling to mine them. Therefore they captured these fellows to mine as laborers. There was no doubt that the people of the crossing immortal domain did not want to be controlled to mine ores. The cultivators outside needed the spirit-devouring ores. It was easy to guess the deal. After a while, Xiaohei and Xiaobai returned. However, the two little fellows had strange expressions. How was it? Did you hear anything useful? We heard a lot of the conversation. Although Ning Yaoyao wanted to get information from these people, they were very smart. They said a lot, but there was not much useful information. On the other hand, Ning Yaoyao was tricked into saying a lot, so everyone knew more about her situation. Bailey Hongzhuang. This fellow was really a genius. What did Ning Yaoyao say? Di Beichen asked. Hearing this, Xiaohei and Xiaobai looked at each other with interesting expressions. What's wrong? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Master, don't be angry if I tell you, Little Black said. What's there to be angry about? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. What's the situation? Just tell me directly. Xiaohei then said, according to Ning Yaoyao, she came here because she found a man she admired, so she followed him all the way here. However, she did not know what this place was for. As soon as he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression became very strange. A man she admired? Her gaze fell on the extraordinarily handsome man beside her. There was no one else besides him. They had almost wiped out the Ning family, yet Ning Yaoyao still admired Beichen. How much of a love-struck fool was she? Chapter 70-72. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang was deep in thought, a hand suddenly covered her face. Then, the handsome face gradually enlarged and a warm kiss landed on her lips. Bailey Hongzhuang was stunned. Then, she heard the man's magnetic voice, I only have my wife in my heart. The unhappiness that had emerged in her heart dissipated with this sentence. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly, sweetness filling her heart. Xiaohei and Xiaobai hurriedly covered their eyes. I didn't see anything. Ahem, is there any other news? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Xiaobai shook her head. There's no other news. Ning Yaoyao asked these people many questions but they all evaded them. There's no other useful information. However, Ning Yaoyao should be targeted. Xiaohei raised her eyebrows, her words carrying an unknown meaning. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood and waved her hand. Ning Yaoyao originally used dual cultivation to raise her cultivation. This is not a bad thing for her. She had heard Yun Yin mention this before. If not, Ning Yaoyao would not have wanted to take Xiaofeng away. In the world of cultivation, all kinds of cultivation methods existed. Among them, there were those that used dual cultivation and cauldron cultivation to raise one's cultivation. This kind of cultivation method was not orthodox and was usually despised by many. However, it had to be said that this kind of cultivation method could raise one's strength very quickly. However, because it was not through orthodox cultivation, one's yuan energy was not pure enough. In the later stages of cultivation, the degree of improvement would be limited. Ning Yaoyao's situation should be like this. For her to be able to raise her cultivation to this level, she must have cultivated for a long time. Needless to say, she must have found a cauldron cultivation. At night, go to the other rooms and take a look. Especially the shop owner. If 3 unfamiliar faces suddenly appear, he will not do anything. Di Beichen said. Xiaohei and Xiaobai nodded repeatedly. It's no problem to leave this kind of task to us. After knowing that Ning Yaoyao's purpose of coming here was not revenge, but because she had high hopes for Di Beichen, the two of them threw this matter to the back of their minds. In this place it was obviously not suitable for them to make too much noise. There was also no need to make a move on Ning Yaoyao. After realizing that she could not find them, she probably would not continue to stay here. They could completely ignore her. In the evening when Ning Yaoyao saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaobai, she had some suspicions, but she completely dispelled her suspicions when she discovered that they did not disguise. At their level, ordinary disguises were of no use at all. That night Xiaohei and Xiaobai hurriedly. Shopkeeper, I'm afraid there's something fishy about the man and woman in the room upstairs. I've already asked the others and they haven't invited any strangers over recently. There's probably something wrong with these two people. The shopkeeper's face darkened slightly. Our information has always been very confidential. How could we suddenly provoke a stranger? Make sure again. If they really have nothing to do with anyone else, then find a chance to get rid of them. Okay, then what about this batch of goods this time? Let's stop for a while. Don't let others find out. I'll inform them tomorrow and send them out a few days later. Chapter 70-73. You have to pay attention to that batch of goods. The shopkeeper's expression was serious. If you walk by the river often, your shoes will get wet. You have to be careful. These guys suddenly appeared at a time like this. Perhaps the news about our batch of goods has been leaked. If they're here to snatch the goods, they'll definitely take action. Shopkeeper, leave this matter to me. Don't worry. The attendant nodded. I'll definitely keep a close eye on them. Xiao He and Xiao Bai looked at each other, feeling helpless. These two guys had been talking for so long, but they still didn't know what the goods were. If they didn't figure this out, it would be difficult for them to find a breakthrough. After the attendant left, Xiao He and Xiao Bai followed him closely. What they wanted most was to follow this guy to see what the goods were. However, this guy didn't seem to have any plans to go for the time being. They followed him for an entire night without any movement. Only then did the two guys return to the house. That guy can really keep his composure. He actually resisted the urge to check the goods. Xiao He sighed. They had waited for an entire night for a result, but who knew that they still didn't know anything? After hearing everything that Xiao He and Xiao Bai said, the two of them finally understood. It seems that our judgment was right. There's indeed a deal between them. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Di Beichen nodded slightly. As for what this deal is, I'm afraid we'll have to wait to find out. Since the shopkeeper and the others were so worried, it was only a matter of time before they couldn't help but check the goods. When that time came, they would be able to find out what the goods were. The next day, Ning Yaoyao continued to wander around other places. She looked like she wouldn't give up until she found Di Beichen. However, there were men accompanying her during this process. In comparison, Ning Yaoyao was dispelled because she was valued by the other men. The two of them became the real targets of suspicion. When the attendant brought the dishes into the house, he pretended to ask casually, "Both of you, we've always been deserted here. May I know what you're doing here? If there's anything I can help with, please let me know." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other and understood that the shopkeeper couldn't sit still any longer. If they didn't say anything today, it was very likely that the other party would make a move on them. The other party was only at the Glorious Sun realm, so they did not fear him in the slightest. However, once they attacked, their problems would be completely exposed, which went against their original intentions. What they needed to do now was to blend into the environment. Only then would they be able to enter the crossing celestial domain. I wonder if you've seen this before. Di Beichen took out a piece of devouring spirit stone and looked at the servant with a faint smile. Seeing the spirit devouring stone, the attendant's expression changed slightly, but soon returned to normal. Young master, this is the spirit devouring stone. Di Beichen nodded slightly. To be honest, we came here this time because we heard that there was a spirit devouring stone here, so we wanted to take a look. As you know, the price of a spirit devouring stone is too high outside. So, pretending to helplessly sigh, Di Beichen whispered, I don't know if this brother has any way to do it? If you can help us, we won't mistreat you. Chapter 70-74. May I know where you heard this from? I found out about it by accident. I saved someone not far away from this mountain range. That person gave me some devouring spirit stones as thanks. I found out about this from him, but I didn't pay much attention to it. It's not easy to dig out this devouring spirit stone. Even if there's a mine here, I wouldn't be willing to dig it out. Di Beichen's expression was serious. This is not the case. After my wife heard the news, she wanted to come and have a look. We also wanted to come and have a look. However, I've been here for 2 days and I don't think there's such a situation. I'm afraid this news isn't true. It's not that easy to get a devouring spirit stone. However, the scenery here is pretty good. We're here to enjoy the scenery. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and said, Little brother, if you really have news about this, I hope you can tell us. We won't mistreat you. She took out a pill and placed it on the table. I think little brother needs this pill. The attendant looked at the bone-refining pill on the table and his eyes lit up. A few years ago he suffered from a hidden illness because of a fight. Usually it didn't affect him much. However, his cultivation had been stagnant. There were almost no alchemists here, so it was not easy to go out and buy medicinal pills. In addition, this place was really too remote, and there were not many medicinal pill stores outside, so he could not find the medicinal pills he needed. Not only that, the price of this pill was very high. He had no choice but to give it up. However, this pill was right in front of him. The attendant's heart suddenly became warm. He couldn't wait to reach out and put the pill into his pocket. However, he didn't say anything after thinking about it. Then I'll help you ask around. If there's news, I'll tell you. Then I'll have to trouble you. After the attendant left, Bailey Hongzhuang fell into deep thought. She didn't know if what they said just now was convincing. There should be no mistake about the devouring spirit stone, Di Beichen said slowly. He had no choice but to take a gamble. No matter what, crossing immortal domain definitely had a spirit-devouring stone mine. There were no devouring stones in the chaotic immortal realm. Therefore, it was very difficult to buy devouring stones in the chaotic immortal realm. Even in the chaotic immortal realm, the price was very high. Since he was able to take out the spirit-devouring stone, he should have gained some trust from the other party. If the goods they are talking about are spirit-devouring stones, then someone must have come here every once in a while to harvest them. As long as we are willing to pay a high price, we can sell it to anyone. The success rate should be very high, but we must first gain their trust. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. He should be tempted by the things I gave him today. Let Xiao He and the others go and find out some information tonight. Maybe there will be a chance. At night, Xiao He and Xiao Bai immediately took action. Shopkeeper, do you think their words can be trusted? The attendant's eyes were filled with anticipation. As long as the shopkeeper agreed, he would be able to obtain the bone-refining pill effortlessly. The shopkeeper looked hesitant. Your information is still not clear enough. We don't even know who the person he's talking about is. How can we be sure? Chapter 70-75. What you said makes sense. However, the other party might not be a trustworthy person after all. We should be careful. The shopkeeper still had some reservations. They had always been very secretive about this kind of business. Once others found out, they would be targeted and it would become very troublesome. Therefore, even if there was a possibility of making money, he would not act rashly. Compared to the money he would earn, the price he had to pay for this failure was undoubtedly much greater. Yes, let's continue to observe. The attendant was a little disappointed. If they did not succeed, it meant that he would not be able to get his hands on the pills. It was such a rare opportunity. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen relaxed a little when they heard the news reported by Xiao He and Xiao Bai. Since he has already started to change his mind, it's only a matter of time. Di Beichen smiled faintly. You're smart. You successfully used this pill to attract him. The attendant's attitude was obviously on their side. If it were not for the pill, it would not be easy for them to get this kid to change his mind. It's never a bad thing to have more skills. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Refining pills was not only for one's own use. Many times it could achieve good results. However, with our current situation, it's already very difficult to gain their trust and buy the spirit-devouring stone. I'm afraid it'll be even more difficult to get the method to enter the crossing immortal domain from them. Thinking about it carefully, these two matters could not be compared at all. If it were not for the people here, the other party would not tell them no matter what. Di Beichen's eyes darkened. This was indeed a problem. If there was no other way, they could only use force. However, under such circumstances, whether force would achieve the desired results was a problem. Don't worry. Since we're already here, it's okay to spend more time. Di Beichen comforted. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. You're right. Let's take it slow. There has to be a process. Everyone knew that the door to the crossing immortal domain was closed. Even if there was a way, the other party would definitely not say it. If they used other methods and the other party hid it, it would be very troublesome. Actually, this attendant is a breakthrough. We can think of more ways to get him. Di Beichen smiled. A person who was already tempted. As long as they added some other bargaining chips, it should not be difficult to bribe him. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. The next day, when the waiter brought the food, Di Beichen asked, Little brother, I don't know if there is any news about the matter we asked you to inquire about? The attendant's expression was complicated for a moment. and his smile was a little stiff. Young master, this kind of thing is not so easy to find. You also know how difficult it is to get a spirit-devouring stone. Even if you have the money, it is still very difficult to find it outside. You're right. We're not in a hurry. I hope you can put in more effort. Di Beichen nodded. Don't worry. I'll let you know if I have any news. Di Beichen stood up. We've been here for a few days. We haven't gone to other places. Let's go to other places today. Will it be dangerous? Chapter 70-76. This time we actually came here by accident. We don't know much about this place. I've observed for a few days and found that there are no outsiders here at all. Won't the two of us be ostracized by people here? Di Beichen's expression was sincere, but there was a faint trace of worry. The attendant finally understood and secretly thought that this man was quite smart. His worried look really didn't show the slightest hint of a conspiracy. He increasingly felt that the innkeeper's worries were unnecessary. If the other party was really fearless, why would he need to worry about this? Gongzi, your words actually make some sense. You can see that we're in a small town and the people who live here are some old residents. The frequency of outsiders appearing is indeed not high, and their sudden appearance will inevitably cause people to be apprehensive. The attendant replied. So, we can't inquire about it ourselves? Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Hearing this, the attendant's expression changed slightly and hurriedly said, I think it's best not to. This kind of thing is not easy to inquire about and you're outsiders. Oh. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded seriously. Little brother, you don't have to be too difficult. If there's nothing else, we'll leave in a few days. The attendant's mood suddenly became more complicated. Once the two of them left, the elixir he wanted. When the attendant left, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen smiled slightly. The reason why they said this was to make the attendant a little anxious. This way their chances would be greater. Let's go out for a walk. Di Beichen stretched out his hand. You really plan to go out? Nothing happened to Ning Yaoyao these few days because she was accompanied by a flower protector, but the situation might not be the same if the two of them went out. Why not? Di Beichen asked back. Just treat us as Dao companions going out to relax and accidentally came here. Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang extended her hand. After leaving the inn, the two of them sized up the situation in the small town. They had to admit that the environment here was very good. However, as the two of them appeared, many people's gazes fell on them, sizing them up strangely. When the two of them turned their gazes over, the other party was silently busy with the matters at hand. Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Mingya did not mind. They walked along the street and looked around. In fact, although this small town couldn't be considered prosperous, it still had everything it should have. However, most of the things sold on the streets were food, clothing, and so on. There were also many weapons, but there were no pills, runes, or the like. No wonder that little brother's eyes were filled with greed when he saw my medicinal pills. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately understood. If she guessed correctly, this place should be a place where the spirit-devouring stone business was conducted. In the process of this development, many people came here. However, alchemists were usually quite revered outside, so very few alchemists would come here. On one hand, it was because alchemists themselves did not lack money. On the other hand, it was undoubtedly very difficult to find enough immortal spirit herbs in this place. There were not many immortal spirit herbs in this mountain range. Therefore, without enough immortal spirit herbs, even if alchemists were willing to stay here, it would be useless. Chapter 70-77. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Di Beichen and smiled. You brought me out to find an opportunity, right? No. Di Beichen shook his head. It's mainly to take you out to relax. Huh? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. But you're right, this is indeed an opportunity, but we still have to find a suitable time to carry it out. The two exchanged glances and seemed to have reached some kind of tacit understanding. As they wandered around the town, almost no one had the slightest intention of talking to them when they saw them. They weren't even willing to exchange glances with them. The two weren't in a hurry and just leisurely looked around as if they were here to play. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly noticed a familiar figure in front. Ning Yaoyao was in front of two men, and she could vaguely hear them arguing. Yaoyao, this guy isn't anything good. It's better for you to follow me. Yaoyao, don't pay attention to him. I'm much better than this guy in every aspect. Ning Yaoyao lazily looked at the two, a hint of playfulness in her eyes. I already have a target this time. Didn't you not find that man? Besides, that man already has a Dao companion. The night is long, why don't I accompany you first? The man's face was full of smiles, and his eyes unabashedly sized up Ning Yaoyao. Ning Yaoyao raised her eyebrows. There are two of you here and I like strong ones. Hearing this, the two men immediately understood what she meant and immediately swung their fists at each other. Seeing this scene, Bailey Hongzhuang was secretly speechless. Ning Yaoyao's troublemaking methods were really amazing. Fighting over this kind of woman? I think these guys really haven't seen the world. Xiaohei was speechless. In Pingfeng City it was Ning Yaoyao who was looking for men, but here she was being fought over by men. Sure enough, the situation was different in different places. Let's go over there. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't interested in this kind of drama, so she turned and walked to the other side. The two of them walked forward until they reached a cliff. Only then did they stop. This was a natural moat. From afar one could only see dense fog. It was impossible to see the situation on the other side. It was as if heaven and earth had been separated here. This place is interesting. Bailey Hongzhuang stared ahead. Even if she used her spiritual power, she could not detect the situation in front of her. The fog in this natural chasm seems to have the ability to block mental power. It seems like the crossing immortal realm is just ahead. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression changed slightly. You're saying it's in front? Normal places wouldn't have such a special fog. This kind of fog is like the fog in the perception steel. It's very difficult to pass through. There was also a natural chasm between the crossing immortal domain and the immortal domain. This natural chasm also reminded them of the gap between half-immortals and true immortals. Coincidentally, there's a natural chasm here and it's very far from the other side. Doesn't this match the description that we've heard? Bailey Hongzhuang carefully studied the situation in front of her and connected the information in her memory. She realized that this was indeed the case. You're right, this should be it. However, it should be very difficult to get there from here. Chapter 70-78. With their current cultivation level, it was not a problem for them to fly in the air. However, if the distance between them and the heavenly moat was too far, they would run out of origin energy halfway. After all, there was no shelter around them. They would definitely die if they fell into the heavenly moat. Di Beichen walked back and forth in the vicinity. He did not find any place that could lead them to the heavenly moat. There was a hint of confusion between his eyebrows. Since this town has a devouring spirit stone trade with the cultivators in the crossing celestial realm, it means that we can meet them. However, we haven't found a way yet. Don't worry, we'll find some clues if we spend more time. This was not out of their expectations. If it was so easy to find out, everyone would know about it. It would not be a secret at all. Just when the two of them were deep in thought, a cold voice could be heard from behind them. What are the two of you doing here? When the two of them heard the cold voice, they turned around and noticed a middle-aged man behind them. The man seemed to be dissatisfied with the two of them. There was a hint of anger in his voice. We just happened to come here, so we're just looking around, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. A ray of light flashed in her eyes. It seemed like this man knew something. This is a heavenly moat. Once you fall into it, you'll definitely die. You'll lose your lives if you stay here. The man said coldly. Thank you for your concern. Di Beichen did not seem to notice the displeasure in the man's voice. He smiled gently and said, We'll be careful. The middle-aged man did not know what to say when he saw Di Beichen's relaxed expression. Let's not stay here anymore. Let's go back. Is there something that we can't come here? Bailey Hongzhuang pretended to be confused. We've never seen such a heavenly moat before. So we just wanted to take a look. It said that this is the border between the chaotic celestial realm and the crossing celestial realm. The man's expression immediately turned cold. You are just two outsiders. Every place has its own taboo. Our town has never welcomed outsiders. If you continue to act like this, then don't blame me for driving you out. Big brother, the two of us only came here by accident. We don't have any intention of violating the rules. We hope that you won't target us too much. Di Beichen pulled Bailey Hongzhuang a few steps away from the natural moat. Actually, we think the environment here is pretty good. Then leave this place quickly. If others find out, you won't be able to stay here even if you want to. The man snorted coldly before flicking his sleeves and leaving. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Sanjiu did not continue to stay here. However, they were certain that this was the place they were looking for. The people here are really rude. Xiao Hei clicked her tongue. Based on the man's behavior, she could not wait to beat him up. Bailey Hongzhuang tilted her head. This man must know a lot of things. It would be great if we can find a breakthrough from him. However, he seems difficult to deal with. I'm afraid it's almost impossible to get anything out of him. Don't worry. We'll find a breakthrough eventually. Di Beichen's expression was casual as he walked towards the inn at a leisurely pace. Chapter 70-79. On the way back, the two realized that the fight between the two men over Ning Yaoyao had come to an end. A man fell to the ground, and the air was filled with the faint smell of blood. The other man stood next to Ning Yaoyao in a victorious manner. Ning Yaoyao did not even glance at the man on the ground and left with the other man. The man on the ground could only stare hatefully at their departing figures, his eyes full of depression. Lu Qiu, your injuries are not light. You should go back and recuperate first. Is it worth it for a girl? It's not like there aren't any other girls in town. The surrounding people voiced out. In order to perform well in front of Ning Yaoyao, the two men did not hold back at all. With such injuries, I'm afraid that a few of his ribs are broken. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the man on the ground and already had some judgment in her heart. Such injuries were undoubtedly very serious for ordinary people, but for cultivators they could recover after a period of rest. The man stood up and left with a gloomy expression. As they walked, Bailey Hongzhuang found that the man's route was actually the same as theirs. Until they reached a house, the man stopped and walked inside. What's wrong with you? A deep and concerned voice rang out. Hearing this voice, Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. This voice sounded quite familiar. Taking a closer look, the two realized that the person who spoke was the middle-aged man they met at the natural moat. Looking at the similar faces of the two, they could tell that the two were father and son. I fought with that guy. Lu Qiu coughed as he spoke. This cough made the injuries on his body even more painful, and a trace of pain appeared on his face. Your health has not been good recently and you still fought with someone. The man's eyes were filled with anger. If you continue to cause trouble, be careful of losing your life. Second uncle had always been well behaved, but didn't he still lose his life in the end? I'm afraid that I won't be able to live for much longer. What nonsense are you talking about? How am I talking nonsense? Lu Qiu looked stubborn. I've been coughing for so long. Why can't they find anything wrong with me? Isn't that strange? The middle-aged man's expression also became complicated. He didn't say anything. It was as if these words had hit his sore spot. He raised his head and suddenly saw Di Beichen and Li Du outside. His face immediately became gloomier. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen tactfully left. Wife, have you found any clues? Di Beichen turned to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. These two people were undoubtedly a good breakthrough point. If he could find the problem, it would be much easier to gain their trust. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. This Lu Qiu is already injured. From my observation, other than the visible injuries, I can't determine anything else. Unless I take his pulse, I won't be able to tell. However, based on the middle-aged man's attitude, it wouldn't be easy to take his pulse. Di Beichen understood. He had also studied medicine for a period of time. He knew that many things couldn't be seen at a glance. But no matter what, this was a good breakthrough point. Thinking about it, they would find the right opportunity. Chapter 70-80. Did the two of you find anything when you went out today? The attendant looked at the two of them curiously. They had only gone out for a short walk before they found him. They must have discovered something and wanted to ask him about it. Little brother, you're really smart, but we didn't find anything. We were just curious and wanted to ask for some information. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Do you know Lu Qiu? Lu Qiu? The attendant was stunned at first, but soon understood. You saw him being beaten up so badly just now, so you came to ask me this, right? Indeed, the scene just now was really shocking. Actually, there's nothing much to say about this matter. It's just two people fighting over jealousy. The attendant waved his hand and said, speaking of this Lu Qiu, he was actually the most talented young man here, but something happened later. What happened? The attendant was a little hesitating whether to speak. When we came back just now, we heard him arguing with his father, saying that he wouldn't live long like his second uncle, and he seemed very depressed. Di Beichen quietly said. Hearing this, the attendant nodded. That's right. A few years ago their family seemed to have been cursed and people kept dying. In the past their family was considered a big family here and they had a lot of people. But for some reason someone suddenly coughed and coughed until he died. In just a few years several people in their family died. Because of this their family suffered a great blow. After that, many people were worried that they would be infected and implicated by their family, and gradually became estranged. I heard that Lu Qiu has started coughing, so everyone thinks that he won't live long. Curse? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. This curse was actually a kind of dark power, but the way it was used was different. That's right. How are you sure that this is a curse? Di Beichen's eyes darkened slightly. I observed the strength of Lu Qiu and his father. With the strength of their family, if they want to force so many people to fall one after another, the power of the curse would be enormous. As the son of darkness, he had never believed in curses. Even if a cultivator accumulated the power of darkness and shrouded a certain area, it would only make that area gloomy and cold. It was impossible for two cultivators of the same cultivation to rely on this kind of power to cause the other party to die one after another. I don't know. The waiter shook his head. I only heard about it. When this incident first occurred, no one thought in this direction. However, because they couldn't find the cause of the illness, and this situation only occurred in their family, it was very strange. Over time, everyone believed that it was a curse because other than that, there was no other reason. Wife, what do you think? Di Beichen asked via voice transmission. The power of the curse sounds strange, but in reality, it shouldn't be able to achieve such an effect. It's most likely caused by someone else. I think so too. After the two communicated their thoughts, Di Beichen said, to tell you the truth, my wife is actually a doctor. She heard what Lu Qiu said earlier, so she was very interested. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.